You're going to see this for the next few days. The Dems need 23 seats to control the House of Representatives. Now, that means they might lose some, they might gain some, but they need a net gain of 23 in order to control the House. They need a net gain of 2 in order to control the Senate. This is possible. Likelihood of this is lower than the likelihood of this. So let's take a look at what Democrats are looking at. These states here are what Democrats are targeting. These are Republican-held seats all across the country. Let's push into this a little bit so you can see all of these yellow districts are independent House districts that are in play. These are places that Democrats want to take from Republicans and think that they are in a position to do so. So this is key. Now, as you can see, they only need 23. I think we're looking at close to 60 here. So the Democrats, if they do very, very, very well on Tuesday, they may take more of these. However, there are some districts that Republicans are targeting that Democrats are in control of at the moment. There are 11 seats, not 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 seats that that Republicans are targeting that are currently held by Democrats. So this 23 that they're looking for, they may have to increase that number if they lose any of these seats. Now, that's the House. Let's take a look at where the Senate is right now. These are the elections that are being held for the Senate. In 2 states, there are 2 elections. There are special elections for the Senate. But let's take a look at what has to happen. NBC believes that there are 42 seats. The Democrats can safely say that they've got 42 out of the 100 seats in the Senate. The Republicans have 47. But we think that these 11 are in play right now. New Jersey, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Montana, North Dakota, Missouri, Indiana, Tennessee, Florida, and West Virginia. Here's how this gets complicated. Stephanie, take any random 3 of these that Republicans win. Let's just say it becomes Texas, North Dakota, and let's say Nevada. And I'm not speculating that that'll be what happens. You see, that gets the Republicans to the 50 they need to control the Senate. That's why the House is a much bigger battle for Democrats, because even if they take all of these states and Republicans take any 3, Democrats still don't get control of the Senate. So we're going to be watching this very, very closely on Tuesday night to see what Democrats win in the Senate, but their likelihood of taking control of the Senate is lower than the likelihood of taking control of the House. This is where all of the excitement is going to be for the next 24 hours. But remember, as we just saw from Texas, we're going to be watching that race very closely. Democrats have not been competitive statewide in Texas for the Senate for a very long time, Steph. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.